Mixing concrete by hand is not an easy task. There's lots of things that go into it. You have to gather all the raw materials, things like regular sand, concrete mix, a whole bunch of water, and rock sediment. You put all these together in sort of a vat, laying the dry ingredients down first, and then you pour the water in on top of it, and you have to mix outside in or the water will go everywhere and you have to go and get more, which can sometimes be like a mile-long walk. So then you start mixing it in and it takes forever, and maybe half an hour later, after vigorous mixing with a shovel and a pickaxe, you may have enough foundation to pour something of a 3x2 batch of concrete. And if you need more, you have to start over. I know all of you are wondering where I have to be going with that. How does a teenage girl from the heart of Frisco, Texas know the first thing about mixing concrete, and how is this even relevant to the study she's doing this year? Easy. That was a personal recount of the experiences I had a few summers ago in the Dominican Republic, and where I spent a week building latrines for the people there. Better yet, in a metaphorical sense, the mixing of concrete also fundamentally changed who I was as a person and how I viewed life. While I was adding water to a single bag of concrete mix and some sand, I was adding a new drive and desire to my life, one for helping people. My name's Lora Taylor, and I'm here to help. This year in ISM, I'm studying nonprofit marketing for two reasons. The first of which is my adoration for helping people in whatever way possible. And secondly, to learn the ways of the business world in relation to finance. This previous year, I had the opportunity to complete a study in leadership consultation, which majorly focused on business management. Going into this next year, I wanted to seize any new opportunities that presented themselves in this new field. Which brings me to my quote, as famously rapped by Lin-Manuel Miranda, "I'm not throwing away my shot." This is relevant not only to my ISM study this year, but also how important it is to be all in all the time in relation to school, work, the relationships in my life, whatever it applies. I know that by not throwing away my shot and being fired up for the opportunities awaiting me, there's nothing that can stop me. The first step in the ISM journey is to conduct a series of informational interviews to do first-hand research and determine who I wanted to ask to be my mentor. The first person I interviewed was Mr. Mark Gaither, who was the Director of Marketing and Communication at the Global Aid Network, which is an organization that works to bring food and water to third world countries who otherwise don't have that basic infrastructure. Talking to him, he has like a super bizarre background. He was actually an engineer for a long amount of time, realized he didn't really like his job, wasn't feeling fulfilled, and came to Dallas, went to seminary, and at seminary was like, wow, I need to do something in the missions field. So he felt called, and now is working here, doesn't probably make nearly as much, but loves it. He really expressed to me how important it is to go where you are called. Also, it's important to form a strong brand, and that everything in the mission that you have has to be as cohesive as possible. After that, I interviewed Brittany Porsche, who's the Marketing and Communications Director at Harvesters Reaching the Nations, which is another organization that's focusing on bringing food to South Sudan. One thing I learned majorly from her is this difference between a big company and a small company, and how they're run very differently, and your responsibilities in both of them are going to be different. After that, we talked about how anything in your life is going to be as Christ-centered as you choose it to be. If you want to live your life far from Christ, that's your responsibility, but if you want to be close, no matter your job, no matter your responsibilities, you can do that. After that, I interviewed Ms. Natalie Combs, who's the financial coordinator at Harvesters Reaching the Nation, the same company as Ms. Porsche. What I learned from her is that above all, it is necessary to be above reproach. This means that when you're dealing with the finances at an organization, especially one that's a nonprofit, you have to be so careful to make sure that you don't let any numbers get sort of like messed up or could be shady at all, because that could cause massive repercussions to the people who are willing to donate to your organization. After that, we talked about how it's important to, whatever your career, find time to spend time with your family, and that any money you raise must go where it's designated. So at Harvesters Reaching the Nation, you could donate to building basic infrastructure, or you could donate to helping a child. But if you specify where you want that money donated, it has to go there. After this, I interviewed Ms. Tiffany Taylor-Wines, who's the Director of Marketing at Orphan Outreach. This was a really amazing interview for me because I learned so much about this orphan crisis that we're facing in the world, There are so many kids around the world that are orphans and that are in orphanages that don't work very well, and I had no clue. Talking with her, we also touched on this idea that a person needs to find their calling, not their job. She worked for a very long time in the older oil industry, which she talked very poorly about, and she said coming into this nonprofit world, working with orphans, which she got into after she adopted her 2 orphans from Russia, was just a spectacular thing to get that first based insight. After that, we talked about special needs orphans, which is something a lot of people would overlook, but is also a really large problem because many countries, if your kid has special needs, the parents don't have the means or the desire to take care of it, so they'll just leave it at a hospital or a church or on the side of a road somewhere. This leads me to my mentor. This is Ms. Dejanay Boyd. She is the Marketing and Special Events Coordinator at Human Rights Initiative, which is a nonprofit down in Dallas that works to bring legal aid and social services to people, immigrants, and refugees who have suffered human rights abuses. I chose her to be my mentor because when she was showing me around the office, I really loved the atmosphere. I loved the work that they were doing. They have a lot of lawyers in-house. The work that they're doing is so essential because these people are in desperate need of help, and otherwise they wouldn't have access to it. And we just clicked. She's a really, really awesome lady. I've really enjoyed my time with her so far. Now, while the interviews are being conducted, it's also necessary to conduct firsthand research in order to be up to date on the field that you're studying. So I did additional research, first of all, with a career outlook assessment, which kind of tells me what the future of my career in this field looks like in the future. And so going through that was really fascinating, knowing, thankfully and unthankfully, that there will always be need for people in this field. There's always going to be people in need, therefore I will always have a job opportunity if I want to pursue this. After that, I looked into the importance of branding, which I have learned to be more and more evident as I've gone through daily life, having a new eye open to, well, why is that logo there, and why is this building placed here, and why did they design it with these colors? Everything that you do is appealing to the consumer in the market, and it's necessary to make sure that it's all cohesive or it will not be nearly as effective. After that, we had the UNT visit. This was a spectacular opportunity to sit in a couple class, learn more about sort of college life, which I'm looking forward to next year. One of the main things in the UNT visit that I learned, I got to go to an economics class. I really enjoyed that. Learning sort of the basis of how the economy works will directly correlate with anyone's job, but especially one in the business field. After that, I also really enjoyed the UNT visit because of how much it taught me that I don't really want to go into UNT. While that was never really a school that I considered, it's always good to take into consideration all the options. After that, I looked into this article that was about how business can break slavery chains. Human trafficking is an issue that has been on my heart for a very long time, and taking the time to research this even more thoroughly was very rewarding and very sad as well. This is an article that really touched on how hotel management in specific can help break these human trafficking chains by looking for specific signs in rooms and when people are walking up to the front desk to get checked in. In doing so, that's actually surprisingly, for me anyway, was that motels and hotels are one of the major pickup, drop-off, transfer points for human trafficking because that's where they all converge. It's hard to track. After that, I looked into how nonprofits can take good to great. This also was a really great one. There's the same guy who wrote this article also wrote a book on how you can just take business from good to great. So looking at it from the nonprofit perspective was really fascinating because there is a very massive difference in how the two are run, but they can both be effective in many of the same ways. So it's good to see how that works. And then after I completed my research came my original work. For my original work this year, I decided that I wanted to teach people where they should put their money. So that led me to figure out, well, where do I think we should put our money? And this was going to culminate, all the research I did was going to be put together in a brochure of types that was easy to read, gathered all this information, and made it people be able to not have to scour through 1,000 websites to find a good company. So first of all, I had to pick organizations. So this is my rough draft of maybe these are ones that I'd be interested in. I ended up with 14, I believe, and Just little things about them. I had 3 on the local, 3 state, 4 national, and 3 global. So all these different levels, all doing incredibly different things, ranging from a drum corps, which works on bringing music education to high school and college age kids, to the Thirst Project, which builds wells in Swaziland to help generate that infrastructure there. So then over here, I talked about why I picked these organizations and why what they were doing was important. This is the second couple of pages for that. So then I have 14 organizations. That's way too many to do enough research on to put on a brochure that people aren't going to feel like, whoa, that's way too much. So I had to start narrowing it down, which is what I did here. Narrowing it down was incredibly hard because the biggest struggle I've had throughout my study this year is figuring out what is more important than the other stuff. Like, is it more important to bring food to someone or water? Is it more important to get someone out of human trafficking or to make sure that they're educated? All these things have been swirling around in my head. It's an incredibly massive task to try to undertake. So I gave myself the criteria of, is this organization highly impactful? What do I feel most strongly about? And what type of cause is it? Is it life-changing or just for the betterment of society? With these criteria in place, it became a lot easier to sort of narrow it down. I ended up cutting it down to 4 organizations, being the International Justice Mission, which does a lot of work with human trafficking, this is the wrong page, excuse me, the National Breast Cancer Foundation, which is shockingly better than Susan G. Komen in the amount of money that they have and where it goes. Human Rights Initiative, which is where I'm working this semester and this past semester for my study this year, and also the End It movement. So once I had these 4 picked out, it then became necessary to do hardcore research over all the individual topics. So that meant that I picked the End It movement and I scoured their website, I scoured yearly reports, all of these things to pick the most important things that I thought the consumer needed to see. So for what I have here is my final product, the brochure. So over here, where your money should go, I thought that kind of proved the point relatively easily. End It movement. And then this is the second page, where it also takes, this was one of my favorite parts of the whole original work because I got to do the fun aspect of graphic design, making it look pretty, while still displaying the information. That is my original work, and while I was working on that, I also had the opportunity to be doing my mentorship with Ms. Dejanay Boyd. This has been an incredibly different experience than the one I had last year with Mr. Rodriguez, because last year I met in a coffee shop, and this year I'm in an actual workplace, and they treat me more as an intern than a mentee, I suppose. And so in doing so, I've had assignments, I've been writing down dates, I've been sitting in on meetings, I made a flyer for a toiletry drive. Doing all these things is giving me this really wonderful real-life experience that otherwise I probably would have no opportunity to get. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I'm excited to see what else is coming as I get to help out with the yearly 5K they do, looking at sponsorship forms, lots of other stuff along those lines. And after my mentorship is my final product. The idea that I have right now, I'm getting to work on it, is putting together an event for an organization, probably in the North Texas area, raising money, going through the process of getting sponsors, and putting on an event and all that that entails. I'm really excited to see how it develops over the upcoming months, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated on when it is so you guys can come. C.S. Lewis once said, "The future is something which everyone reaches at a rate of 60 minutes per hour, whatever he does, whoever he is." This year in ISM, I'm excited to help people while learning, and I know that with the support of my God, teachers, family, friends, the sky's the limit in the possible outcomes of this year. I will emerge a better person. I'm excited to figure out what that means. Every morning starts a new day full of new opportunities and realities. 24 hours is more than enough time to change the world. So let's get started. Thank you. 14:20.